When it comes to approving a project, the most important question studio executives and producers ask themselves is, will this make money? It really is a good idea to have an A-list star or adapt a popular series, but it is never a guarantee. You would think that listening to what people want is the most logical method to predict how well a movie will do. If you go online for 5 seconds, you will find millions of cinephiles pleading with Hollywood to adapt a book series, relaunch a franchise, or make a sequel to a masterpiece. After being worn down for years or decades, Hollywood eventually caves and makes the precise film we asked, but no one shows up in the theaters. This can happen for a variety of reasons. The film may not have been adequately advertised, it may have been released at an unfortunate time, or it simply was not excellent. Society despises Hollywood for churning out the same mindless garbage, yet you cannot blame them when the movies we want to see turn out to be box office poison. Number 1. Dredd. There are 2 rules to follow when adapting Judge Dredd from 2000 AD. First and foremost, we must never see the face of the titular judge. Second, it is not permitted for Rob Schneider to appear in it. These golden decrees were somehow forgotten in the 1995 adaptation, which starred Sylvester Stallone as the snarling street judge. Fans were ecstatic when it was announced that the 2012 reboot would be Judge Dredd done right. The new version, simply titled Dredd, stayed true to the source material, and Karl Urban was an excellent choice for the lead. Many people, predictably, were uninterested in seeing the film, assuming it would be more of the same as its dreadful predecessor. In addition, the distributor insisted that Dredd be shown in 3D in order to showcase the film's stunning slow-mo effects, which took years to perfect. Because 2D screenings were limited and 3D screenings were expensive, many moviegoers passed on the film, putting the film's box office prospects in jeopardy. Despite the fact that Dredd had a $50 million budget, it only made $41 million. Not only did it fail to break even, but it also failed to make even half as much as the Stallone adaptation. Number 2. Hellboy. The superhero genre was not always as lucrative as it is now. Moviegoers had to suffer through shoddy comic book adaptations like Hulk, Daredevil, Catwoman, and Fantastic Four during the millennium. Guillermo del Toro, however, shook things up in 2004 when he adapted the Dark Horse character Hellboy for the big screen. Hellboy stood out from its derivative genre with its dark tone, distinct style, and emphasis on animatronics and puppetry, rather than CGI. Fans were clamoring for a sequel, but studio executives were hesitant. In Hollywood, for example, it is customary to only approve a sequel if the previous film's budget was at least doubled. Hellboy only made $99 million on a $66 million budget because it lacked A-list stars and was based on a lesser-known superhero. It appeared that the franchise's future was doomed because it was $33 million in the red. However, the problem is that it was a huge hit with the audience, who demanded a sequel. Because Hollywood was still churning out bad superhero adaptations like Elektra and Ghost Rider, the studio decided to take a chance and greenlit Hellboy 2. Despite the fact that audiences were expected to flock to the theater in droves, the film was once again dubbed a box office disappointment. Number 3. X-Men: Dark Phoenix. Although X-Men: Apocalypse was a disappointment, many moviegoers felt obligated to see the sequel, X-Men: Dark Phoenix. It was not just the next installment in the series. It was the final chapter of Fox's X-Men before Disney bought the franchise. Not only that, but the Dark Phoenix saga would finally be done right, supposedly. Regrettably, things went wrong right away. Following allegations against director Bryan Singer, he left the project, leaving Dark Phoenix in the hands of Simon Kinberg, a first-time director. Regrettably, things have only gotten worse. The film underwent extensive reshoots, including a completely new ending, and its release date was twice shifted. It was clear that Dark Phoenix would not rise from the ashes, with rumors circulating that actors were trying to get out of the project and Fox was considering canceling it. Despite the fact that many of these claims turned out to be false, it was enough to turn off even the most ardent fans. The movie was not great, but it was not as bad as we had anticipated. Unfortunately, it only made $252 million, making it the X-Men franchise's least successful film. Number 4. Power Rangers. Power Rangers were all over the place in the 1990s. It was once the most popular Saturday morning cartoon. During season 2, it was so popular that it was broadcast during prime time. Of course, just because a film was popular does not mean it will be a box office hit in theaters. After the last sequel underperformed, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film franchise was cancelled. Transformers used to be a box office powerhouse, but the last 2 installments failed to meet expectations. Power Rangers, on the other hand, was a unique franchise. It was not just fashionable in the 1990s. It is still widely used today. In fact, there have been a whopping 20 spin-offs from the Super Sentai adaptation, which is probably the world record. A big-budget Power Rangers film has been greenlit for 2017 because it is self-evident that the fanbase still wants to see more new stories about the Saban property. The studio was so sure of themselves that they planned 5 sequels. Even though it had little competition when it was released, it only made a profit. Dean Israelite, the director, believes the PG-13 rating contributed to the film's failure. The planned sequels were cancelled for whatever reason. Number 5, Ghostbusters, 2016. Because Ghostbusters is one of the most well-known comedies of all time, studios were bound to try to turn it into a franchise. Despite the fact that Ghostbusters 2 was a flop, fans could not get enough of the nostalgia. They were still hungry for more. Sony decided to reboot the film with a female cast playing the titular Phantom Hunters, after Dan Aykroyd went through a dozen scripts over nearly 20 years. To put it mildly, moviegoers were dissatisfied. Millions of people viewed the gender-swapped cast as a publicity stunt, and boycotted the film as a result. It is easy to blame the film's failure on trolls who condemned it before it was released, but there were many other factors at play. The trailers were not only unfunny, but it was also unclear whether the film was a remake or a sequel. Even the title was a mystery to viewers. Was Answer the Call part of the film's title or the tagline? If a film cannot make its trailer look good or its title stand out, it is doomed. Paul Feig, the director, stated that a sequel to Ghostbusters would require a $500 million budget. Unfortunately, it did not make even half of that, so his planned sequels were shelved.